To reject the welfare reforms bill tomorrow, even after the Prime Minister watered it down with a 50% U-turn to appease the rebellion. And Jamaica is turning up the heat on slavery reparations once again, this time taking its fight straight to the King. But is now really the time to pay up for the past sins of Britain? Well, the show's a pleasure to have your company. Hope you're keeping cool. We've got a certain political melting pot tonight. We've got loads of stuff to get your teeth stuck into. Get in touch, use your ways. GBNews.com/your say is the way to do that. But before we get stuck in, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you and good evening. The top stories: a criminal investigation has now been launched into the Glastonbury performances of Kneecap and Bob Vylan. In a statement, Avon and Somerset Police said video footage and audio from Bob Vylan and Kneecap's performances at Glastonbury Festival on Saturday has been reviewed. The Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy says problems with broadcasts at the festival should have been foreseeable. Bob Vylan have now been dropped by the United Talent Agency and their management. They've also had their US visas revoked ahead of a tour later in the year because of their, quote, hateful tirade at Glastonbury. The BBC said earlier that they should have pulled the live stream of the rap duo's performance, which contained, quote, utterly unacceptable and anti-Semitic sentiments. A spokesman for the regulator Ofcom said they were very concerned about the live stream and the BBC, quote, clearly has questions to answer. The government's U-turn on welfare cuts will cost taxpayers around £2.5 billion by 2030, the Work and Pensions Secretary has told MPs, as she laid out concessions to Labour rebels. Liz Kendall said the costs and savings of the government's revised welfare package would be confirmed by the Office for Budget Responsibility at the budget in the autumn. Thousands of people are going to be forced into poverty because of the changes to the welfare system. Number 10 says the welfare system is broken. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch spoke in the Commons this evening.
This is a government in chaos. Labour cannot govern. They came into office thinking it was going to be very easy, but what's happened is that because of COVID, we now have 1 million extra people on benefits. We need to get those people back into work. The bill just before COVID for health and disability benefits was 40 billion. It's going to be up to 100 billion on Labour's current plans. So they're not cutting the budget, they're just cutting how much they would increase it by. That is not good enough. We need to have people working. There are a lot of people who are genuinely disabled, who have significant conditions that need looking after.
GBNews sources predict up to 900 small boat migrants could reach UK waters by the end of the day today. That says at least 300 have already arrived in Dover illegally so far on what's expected to have been the hottest day of the year. Yesterday, almost 600 migrants made the illegal crossing, with the arrivals taking the total number of Channel migrants so far this year to more than 19,000. That figure is 44% higher than the 13,272 who crossed at the same point last year. And the Prince of Wales has visited the Lionesses squad ahead of the UEFA Women's Euros that gets underway this week. Prince William met with England's head coach Serena Wiegman with the Lionesses' first match against France to kick off on Saturday night. The Prince is the patron of the Football Association. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana, and welcome to GB News Tonight. With me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, an undercover journalist pretending to be an illegal Afghan immigrant showed how for just £40 a week, the princely sum of 40 quid a week, they could rent a verified Just Eat courier account on Facebook and begin delivering meals within minutes without any identity or right-to-work checks. It's an astonishing breach of British security, and let's take a look.
As a new arrival into the UK from Afghanistan, we went on various Facebook forums, and within 10 minutes of asking, we've been offered multiple accounts for as little as £40 a week and as much as £100 a week. From there, we were able to obtain a login for a Just Eat account. I have successfully picked up my first order using this Just Eat account, which of course is not mine. It belongs to someone who has the right to work here, and I am of course posing as a new arrival into the UK. I'll drop off here for Rebecca.
Yes, perfect, thank you.
People are coming over illegally from France and then working as Just Eat Deliveroo drivers, and then they can go around London, Surrey, wherever, just dropping off people's orders despite having no right to work. I mean, how do you feel about that?
No, that makes me a bit nervous now.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute disgrace what's going on in this country. And now major firms, including Deliveroo, Uber Eats and Just Eat, have since been summoned by the Home Office following a similar expose revealing freshly arrived asylum seekers earning up to £1,000 a week. And by the way, this is a story GBNews is covering for about 2 years. Well, I'm very pleased now to be joined in our studio by GBNews senior political commentator Nigel Nelson as we await the arrival of the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. Nigel, welcome to the show. This, once again, is a total disgrace. It's people arriving in the country. It could be anybody, no background checks. They could be terrorists, for all we know, throwing their passports in the sea. They're going onto WhatsApp groups and they are bagging a job within minutes. Proof positive, as if it were needed, that the black market is thriving and it's being fuelled by illegal immigration.
Yeah, all those things. I mean, I agree with you totally. That what these people are doing is illegally working. Yvette Cooper is cracking down on illegal working. Now she must turn her attention to the evidence provided by the two films, the one you've just shown, and obviously Chris Philp's own film at an asylum hotel. So yes, this is straightforward illegal working. That the firms must be looked into to see how all this is happening, and the people must be stopped from doing it.
The trouble with that, though, is that we continually get statements, no doubt we got one later here, from these big delivery companies, and they continue to say we do everything we can to be as stringent as possible. Clearly, that's not enough.
No, I mean, I'm a bit surprised, in fact, you don't check the identity documents of somebody when they're coming up to pick up the food, quite honestly. I mean, it's something the companies could do. If they've got a new driver who's coming along to go and get the stuff, you'd then make a check on it. I mean, this is a straightforward illegal behaviour, and that's what must be stopped. If an asylum seeker has been here for a year and hasn't been processed, they can work in shortage occupations. That's because it's silly to keep them doing nothing for so long.
Why?
Well, I mean, because
we don't need illegal people coming here and flipping into.
Well, at this stage, they're not illegal. Bear in mind that they're not illegal. While this is illegal work, and we're talking about here, that asylum seekers aren't illegal until their asylum claim has been rejected. So, if we can't clear the backlog, and you've got them here for over a year, rather than just have them clicking their heels, if there is a job in a shortage occupation they can do, then yes, they should do it.
You're not saying for a moment, Nigel, that we have a shortage of Deliveroo riders.
No, I'm not.
They're clogging the high streets of every city in town.
And this is
you can't move without seeing them. They're in full face masks. You know, they look hostile. You know, and the proof is abundant now, and that there is a sizable tranche that seem to be working illegally.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, certainly it's not a shortage occupation to be a delivery driver. So this is a whole different ball game. The Home Office has now got the evidence. They should be sending enforcement teams out to put a stop to it.
OK, well, as we await the arrival of Chris, well, let's take a look now at the video that Chris Philp made, where he did his own little impromptu raids on people working illegally in hotels across Britain.
Well, I'm here.
OK, so this is Chris Philp here. You can see an excellent video accosting people directly, walking up to them, asking them where they're from, what they're doing, and the takeaway, pun intended, message from this is that a lot of them were working illegally. They're working cash in hand for the big delivery companies. And a lot of people saying this has just been going on for way, way too long, and it simply must stop. Let's have a little listen now.
With the hotel here, you can see there's a lot of Just Eat bikes here, a lot of Deliveroo bikes, loads of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whereabouts are you from? From
Yemen.
Yemen, you're from Yemen. Okay. And did you get here by boat?
Don't know English.
Whereabouts are you from? Can we run? Okay, from Tehran or?
Sorry, you know.
I can if you want, it's a free country.
Yeah,
A shopkeeper in the shop behind me, he confirmed the hotel is an asylum hotel, and people he said arrived on small boats are now staying there. And he also said he's seen lots of the residents of the hotel doing work on Uber Eats, on Deliveroo.
I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio by that man, the Deliveroo chaser, the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp. Chris, welcome to the show. So you know this is going on. You went in pursuit of them yourself, and it's just got to the point now where every high street and every town really is festooned with these bikes. We have no idea who these people are, and the blatant proof in this latest investigation by the Sun newspaper, as you know, accounts being sublet out for 40 quid a week, no checks. Within moments, really, of coming to our shores, you can be whisking curries and burgers around and getting paid cash in hand.
Yeah, Martin, you're absolutely right. It's completely outrageous. I went to that asylum hotel you showed in the clip just then. I went there a week or so ago, and there was a pen full of bikes, as the clip showed, absolutely stuffed full of bikes with panniers on the back for Deliveroo, Uber Eats and Just Eats, and the illegal immigrants, within, in some cases, just hours of illegally entering our country. They're illegal immigrants coming in by small boat. They're working on platforms like Deliveroo, and the people smugglers are telling these illegal immigrants in France, if they come to the UK, then they can work here easily. So it's a pull factor that is attracting illegal immigrants to come from France and Germany into the UK. Now, first of all, the Home Office run that hotel and dozens of other hotels like it. So the Home Office, Yvette Cooper, should be shutting that down. Why is she paying our money, taxpayers' money, to accommodate these illegal immigrants in hotels and letting them run illegal working right under the Home Office's nose? Now, you saw that security guard in that video. He was very keen to kick me out when I was asking questions as a Member of Parliament, but he wasn't lifting a single finger to sort out the fact the illegal immigrants were illegally working for Deliveroo. Now, Deliveroo themselves and Just Eats and Uber Eats are frankly allowing this to happen on their platforms. They claim they do checks, but that is absolute nonsense, as evidenced by the fact that all those illegal immigrants in the hotel are working, and then there's the evidence of the Sun journalist who managed to successfully get himself a Deliveroo login. So any checks they're doing, if they are doing any for that matter at all, are clearly not working. They are facilitating and encouraging illegal immigration. The Home Office should come down on those companies, Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats, like a ton of bricks, prosecute them, fine them into next week, and frankly, if they can, personally prosecute the people running those companies as well, because they are creating a magnet, a pull factor for illegal immigrants to come to the UK. And then finally, there is a public safety aspect. I mean, often, for example, imagine a lone woman ordering a Deliveroo, coming maybe to her house or flat late at night, thinking that the delivery driver is known to Deliveroo, but because of all this practice of renting out logins, either with or without Deliveroo's knowledge, the person who actually turns up to the door, you know, at midnight, could be, frankly, absolutely anyone, including an illegal immigrant who only turned up to the country a few days beforehand. So I think it's a safety risk as well.
Chris Philp, every time we do the story at GBNews, no doubt we'll have a statement from the companies in a short while. They always say we're rigorous in our checks. We do everything in our power. But here we are again. It's Groundhog Day. I put it to you. On these WhatsApp message groups, it says once a day, if you ask for a facial ID recognition login, that's what the phone does. The app has that power. Simply message me, the accounts holder. I'll take a selfie of my mugshot, send it to you. Bosh, you're in. Clearly, the checks and balances don't work. Are we being fobbed off?
Yeah, we're definitely being fobbed off. I mean, I wrote to the chief executive of some of these companies after my visit to the asylum hotel. I got the usual response with all the usual platitudes. And when they say they're taking proper action to stop this, they're basically lying. They're not. I mean, the evidence is right there in front of us at the asylum hotel, on streets up and down the country, and the Sun journalists' work as well. I think a couple of years ago, the Home Office did stop a load of Deliveroo riders to identify who they were. And it turns out, I think, over half of them had no right to work here. So these companies need to urgently put their house in order. They are fobbing us off. They're lying, frankly, and it's about time and the government took some action here.
Now, Chris, of course, they would stringently deny that. They would say they're not lying. To be absolutely clear here, Chris, are you saying that the company owners should be dragged into court and prosecuted?
Yeah, they should. Yes, they should. They're presiding over companies who are facilitating mass illegal working. And it's not just, a handful of drivers or 5%. It's huge numbers. It's thousands and thousands. And when you get people smugglers openly advertising in Europe, continental Europe, saying one of the reasons to come to the UK is you can easily work illegally on platforms like Deliveroo. They are providing people smugglers with their advertising material, fueling this flood of illegal immigrants across the Channel.
Isn't the first thing you actually got to do, though, is put a stop, obviously, to illegal working? Yeah. So I presume your film has gone to the Home Office and all the details there, so an enforcement team can go out there and deal with it.
Yes, I wrote to Yvette Cooper with the full details, urging her to shut down the illegal working at that hotel and other hotels, which she directly controls, and secondly, asking her to get immigration enforcement to investigate. I also personally messaged the Immigration Minister with a screenshot of one of these websites where you can rent details to draw it directly to her attention. Yes.
Right. And then the other point there is, obviously this is illegal working. There's no question about that, what you've discovered. But these people are not illegal migrants yet. They're asylum seekers, so they won't become illegal until their asylum claim has been rejected.
Well, no, I disagree, because in my view, they're illegal immigrants the minute they cross the Channel. That is in contravention. They may subsequently claim asylum, but they still entered the country illegally, contrary to Section 24 of the Immigration Act 1971. And because they came not directly from a place of danger, they came from France, which is safe, that means under the Refugee Convention, they can be subject to penalties, including criminal sanctions. So they categorically, in my view, are illegal immigrants. OK, well, we have a statement from Angela Eagle, of course, Dame Angela Eagle, who is the Minister for Border Security and Asylum, and she told GB News this: I welcome Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats' pledge to increase facial verification checks following today's round table. We will keep a close eye on their progress and continue discussions. Now, under our plan for change, we are taking a zero-tolerance approach to illegal working across the board, and arrests nationwide have increased by 51%. And we are strengthening legislation via our Borders Bill to end the abuse of flexible working arrangements. Now, I've got some breaking news line for you, Chris Field. We'll get your reaction to this. And it's this. Moments ago, the Home Office announced that it is set to prescribe 3 groups now, and that is Palestine Action, Maniacs Murder Cult, and the Russian Imperial Movement. And they are set to be banned following advice from cross-government experts. Now, if agreed by Parliament, it'll be illegal to be a member of or invite support for any of those 3 groups. Now, doing so will be punishable by up to 14 years in jail or an unlimited fine. Chris Phil, can I get your reaction first of all, probably to the most prominent of those names there, Palestine Action, finally being clamped down on? Yeah, well, I support that. Palestine Action is a violent group that is seeking to impose its political views on our country, a democracy, using acts of violence, which includes smashing up property and also attacking people. They attacked a police officer with a sledgehammer last summer. They are a violent group. We don't do things that way in this country. We're a democracy. We elect Parliament and we decide things by debate, media debate in Parliament, and then votes in Parliament. We don't decide things in this country by mob violence, and Palestine Action are a violent group attacking, as I say, a police officer with a sledgehammer. So it's quite right that they should be prescribed, and I'll certainly be supporting that in Parliament when it's debated and voted on potentially on Wednesday. And do you know anything, gentlemen, but perhaps the both of you, about the colourfully named Maniacs Murder Cult? Who are they?
I'm sorry, I've never heard of them. They're a new one on me.
I've got to be honest, I haven't come across them before, but from their name, the Maniacs Murder Cult, it doesn't sound like they're very nice people. I will obviously make sure I do look at the background briefing and research it thoroughly before Wednesday's vote. It doesn't sound to me like they're much into crochet. Does it? Or knitting patterns. And the Russian Imperial Movement, I think that does what it says on the tin. Nigel, now some quick reaction to you before we go to the break. Is this the right thing to do? A lot of people are saying it's not the right thing to do. You know, we believe in freedom of expression, freedom of speech in the UK. But do you think, as somebody from the political left, that Palestine Action crossed the line?
Yes. No question. If you break into an RAF base and you sabotage planes, then you have crossed the line. You crossed that line into terrorism, so therefore they should be prescribed.
OK, thank you very much, gentlemen. I've got a quick statement here from the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who said this: national security is the first duty of any government. Maniacs Murder Cults, Palestine Action and the Russian Imperial Movement have each passed the threshold for prescription based on clear national security evidence and assessments. Now, the right to protest and the right to free speech are the cornerstone of our democracy. Violence and serious criminal damage has no place in legitimate protests. And Chris Philp there nodding along in unison with Nigel. Gentlemen, thank you both very much. Now, on legal working, I should add that Deliveroo has said it takes a zero-tolerance approach to anyone abusing its platform. Uber Eats has said they're committed to tackling illegal working, and Just Eat says it fully supports the government's efforts to tackle illegal immigration. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Now, coming up next, Labour rebels are still threatening to reject the welfare reforms bill even after the Prime Minister watered it down with a 50% U-turn earlier on today. That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should we be paying more for the BBC, do you think?
Yes, in the short term. It's for a cost of a cappuccino a week. You don't only get all the television channels, you get all the radio channels, local news, you get the websites, you get World Service, a significant amount of that. You've got a vast range of things. It's not just a television licence. And the BBC licence fee, in real terms, has gone down about 40% in 15 years. What I think we need is two things. One is an immediate increase, significant increase, so we stabilise the situation.
Go on, how much, Roger? What's the fee?
Hold on.
Well, tell me how much.
Then, secondly, hold on. We need to have a proper debate publicly about whether we want public service broadcasting, how we want to deliver it, and how we want to pay for it. The BBC has cut as much as it can. We should now have a public debate about what we want.
OK. All right, the BBC's cut as much as it can. I mean, grief. I would love to try to see the BBC try to operate on the kind of budget.
I thought you were chairman, objective chairman here. It was a head-to-head with this lady, and you were going to be an objective chairman.
Yeah, well, you decided not to answer any of my questions. But anyway, June, I'll put this one to you. Well, what do you think about the money?
Yes.
June, what do you think about the money being paid for the BBC? Should we pay more?
In 2020, you lost 80, let's have a look, 80,000. And then by 2023 to 24, that went up to 500,000 licence fees not being paid. That's because they don't want the product. A lot of the reason is the biased side of the news, which is why people watch GB News. The programme making, I can understand the creative part of it, but what you've got to look at from the public's point of view is they pay their licence whether they're using all those facilities or not.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is facing yet another fresh rebellion as the government's own modelling shows his watered-down welfare cuts will still push 150,000 people into poverty by 2030, with more than 50 MPs still expected to vote down the reforms tomorrow. Now, the concessions will halve government savings from the £5 billion originally proposed to a mere £2.5 billion by the end of the decade. It's a big sum of money, but half the previous amount. That includes agreeing that those currently on personal independence payments, PIPs, can now keep their benefits.
There have also been real concerns about our initial proposals. We have listened carefully and we are making positive changes as a result. I fully understand that even though 9 out of 10 people claiming PIP when the changes come in would be unaffected by the end of this Parliament, that this has caused deep and widespread anxiety. We will now ensure the new 4-point requirement will only apply to new claims from November 2026.
There we go now. Some Labour Party big hitters have urged MPs to oppose the bill, including the Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, who called it a just 50% U-turn, and that man, London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who says it needs radical transformation. But has the Prime Minister done enough to stave off a revolt, or once again has his U-turn left the electorate feeling pretty confused? Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by the Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, Sarah Pochin, as well as GBNews' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Sarah Pochin, a delight to have your company as ever.
Thank you.
We saw a U-turn today, a 50% U-turn, saving £2.5 billion a year, half the original saving of £5 billion. I put it to you, the total bill for benefits by the end of this decade, by 2030, is going to be £100 billion. Today, to many people, felt like a climb down.
This country is already bankrupt, partly due to the out-of-control benefits bill that we are now facing. Keir Starmer once again has U-turned. Already, in the 8 weeks that I've been in position, he's U-turned on the winter fuel allowance, he's U-turned on the grooming gangs, and here we are now U-turning on benefits. But he's U-turning because he's worried he's going to lose the vote. He's not U-turning with any conviction about what he's saying. He's even said, oh, I'm sorry, British people, I've been abroad, so I've lost track of all of this. And he's actually admitting that he has no conviction about what this bill, what this reform is trying to do. Now, if as a voter, that leaves me feeling confused and concerned that my Prime Minister does not know what he's doing.
Do you think that's a fair concern here? A lot of people, perhaps from the Reform Party, might think this doesn't go far enough. £2.5 billion in savings. It's a lot of money in isolation, but in the grand scheme of things, it's chicken feed. It's a drop in the ocean. It's 2.5% of the bill by 2030. Would your party have some more radical ideas, perhaps?
Look, Martin, this is, like you say, it's teetering on the edge here. You know, this is not going to make a huge difference, and the voters are confused. And you know what? I think people have lost interest in whether it's £2.5 billion or £5 billion. Or this. Nobody believes these figures. Who's going to believe a Prime Minister who keeps changing his figures and U-turning? If Reform were in power, we would do something really radical. Let's look at some policies that are totally, totally haven't been discussed, that are out of the box. Like, why don't we say, you know what, you come into this country unless you can afford to be here, unless you can afford to look after yourself and buy your own house, you get no benefits. So let's say no benefits to anybody coming into this country in the first 5 years, say. So, in other words, yes, you're welcome to come into this country, and everything I say when I'm asked these questions, you are welcome here if you have something to offer. You are not welcome here. One, if you come in illegally, you go straight back. But if you come in and you expect free housing, free driving lessons in my constituency, they're getting free mobile phones, free food allowances, free clothing, you name it, it's free. And, of course, as we know, they're, in the meantime, working for Deliveroo and earning a lot of money. And I mentioned them, but, of course, there are other companies. But the point is, it's on a win-win basis, these people coming into the country at the moment. No, let's do something radical. No benefits. Benefits that the British taxpayer pay for. Why should we pay? If you want to come into this country, you contribute.
Nigel Nelson, that would be a common-sense policy, perhaps for a lot of the red wall areas that the Labour Party is straddling two camps. It's trying to please the red wall, who might agree with ideas like Miss Pochin's, but it's also trying to appease its benefits-addicted left-hand rump. Never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, but the important thing here, I mean, what Sarah's talking about is different from benefit, from welfare anyway, from the disabled. What we've had here is we started off with the cost-cutting exercise falsely dressed up as welfare reform. What we need to have is proper welfare reform, and the first thing you do is a review. Now, I welcome the changes the government have actually made to the original proposal, but at least now we will get a review. I didn't think Liz Kendall was actually terribly helpful today by suggesting that the review will still come to the same result they've got at the moment.
All right.
When it comes down to PIPs. But the important thing is to find out the reason. Are we getting sicker? Are there too many people on benefits? Why are they on benefits? And then you can do something about it.
Or are people gaming the system? Sarah Bojan, as I have you here in the studio earlier on, we had Ben Habib in here, of course, the former chairman of Reform UK. He's launching his party today, Advance UK. Then we've got a quick clip to show you.
Today, I address you in a new capacity. I address you as the leader in waiting of Advance UK.
Sarah Bojan, there we are. Advance UK, new kid on the block. What's your reaction to it?
White noise. You know, I'm sorry, there is only one party now that is the real opposition, and that is Reform UK. Yeah, Ben can do this. I mean, who's Ben Habib, for goodness sake? I've never even met the guy. The British public know that to be a force in politics now, which Reform are, you need to have the courage of these convictions. You need to have a leader like Nigel Farage, and they know that we will form the next government. So, yeah, this Ben guy, he can, you know, launch what he wants. Let him get on with it. It's white noise. Reform is the party that is going to lead this government through the next general election.
OK, well, a somewhat withering response there. Thank you very much. And thank you as well to you, Nigel Nelson. Now, coming next, after backlash over kneecap and Bob Villan, the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, says the BBC's in the firing line. So is it right for ministers to step in and interfere with government policy? And what could that mean for the beleaguered BBC? That's next.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, it is going to be another warm and uncomfortably humid night for many places towards the southeast, but we do have some fresher air starting to make its way in. The fresher air is behind a frontal system which is lingering across northern and western parts at the moment. That's already brought a fair amount of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland today, and we're going to see some more rain for a little while yet, but the front is going to ease, so that rain breaking up as it edges into parts of northern England overnight. Away from the band of rain towards the southeast, lots of dry weather, some clear skies, but it is going to be warm, it's going to be humid, some places staying above 20 Celsius, so a difficult night for sleeping for some. Meanwhile, towards the northwest, like I said, there's some fresher air coming in, so it's actually going to be a bit cooler here first thing on Tuesday morning, and quite bright and sunny across parts of northern and western Scotland, also across Northern Ireland too. For eastern and southern Scotland and also across parts of northern England into northern and western Wales. A bit more cloud around, could be some outbreaks of rain coming and going as well. But across the rest of England and Wales, a fine start to the day. Yes, it is going to be warm first thing, but there will also be plenty of sunshine on offer as well. As we go through the day, lots of sunshine continuing, particularly towards the southeast. Plenty of sunshine here, and with that hot air, we're going to see temperatures rising, perhaps even higher than today. 35, 36 Celsius, not out of the question. A bit fresher towards the north and west, and watch out for some heavy showery bursts developing, particularly across parts of northern England and southern Scotland. Some further showery rain across the eastern parts as we go through into Wednesday, even some showery bursts pushing into parts of the southeast, and a few scattered showers coming in from the west northwest later as well. But in between those zones, another largely fine day for many on Wednesday, but a markedly fresher feel for many as some cooler air starts to make its way in, with some more changeable weather later this week.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubry. Now, after a huge backlash around Niqab and Bob Villan, the Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy earlier today announced in the Commons that the government is on a collision course with the BBC over its coverage and its editorial standards.
Outstanding questions remain, including why this performance was broadcast live, given the concerns regarding other acts in the weeks preceding the festival, why the feed wasn't immediately cut when the chants of death to the IDF began, and what due diligence was done prior to the decision to broadcast this particular act to the nation.
So is it right for government ministers and the Prime Minister himself to intervene in the BBC's editorial treatment? And if so, what might that punishment look like? Well, now the Telegraph is reporting this evening that the BBC Director General made the decision not to pull the live stream of Bob Villan's Glastonbury performance from iPlayer while attending the festival himself. The plot thickens. And to discuss this and dissect it, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by the former Attorney General Sir Michael Ellis, as well as my colleague, GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Sir Michael Ellis, let's start with you first. What's your take on the BBC's treatment of Glastonbury, and do you think it requires governmental intervention?
Not only do I think it requires governmental intervention, I think it requires heads to roll, Martin. I think this is a step too far, and frankly, I think it's time now for Tim Davie, as Director General of the BBC, to go. We cannot have the situation that we have now seen at Glastonbury being broadcast on our airwaves. You know, there are hundreds of thousands of Jewish people in this country who are obligated, like everybody else, to pay their licence fee. Can you imagine those Jewish people who are in this country who are required by law to pay the licence fee when the BBC are transmitting that type of material? Now, the fact is, they walked into this with their eyes wide open, it seems to me, both the Glastonbury organisation itself and the BBC. It's pretty rare, Martin, that you have both Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer agreeing on something. They both warned beforehand about Glastonbury. Those warnings were ignored, and now we are where we are.
So, Michael, if this report from the Telegraph is true, and that man, Tim Davie, the BBC Director General, made the decision himself not to pull the live stream of Bob Villan's performance while he was at the festival himself, is that the final piece for you of damning evidence?
Yes, it is. I think he really does have to go. The fact is, even if he was not there himself, even if he was so-called off-duty, the fact is, he is the head of the organisation. It's extremely easy. All broadcasters know, and I'm sure many people at home would imagine it's common sense. There is a cut-off switch that can be pressed, and if you are covering an event like Glastonbury, especially with all the pre-warnings about it, someone in the gallery there in the control room literally should have had their finger hovering over the cut-off button. This shouldn't have taken anybody by surprise, and if they were going to broadcast this stuff, they should have been ready to cut it off at very quick notice. To have made an active decision to broadcast it is outrageous.
And Sir Michael asks, what's of Glastonbury itself? Of course, they have a fallow year next year. They have to let their site have a rest. But should they lose their licence?
Well, I think they're in trouble, and I spoke just a short time ago to the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, a charity, a noted charity in this country, and they are planning to write to Glastonbury and to the local authorities who are responsible for what's called a premises licence, which is the events licence for such an event as Glastonbury, and challenge the continuation of that licence. And I can fully understand why that be the case, because this is an international event licensed with over 200,000 people to attend, and they have a responsibility to adhere to the standards that are required by that licence. And now this charity, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, is challenging that licence going forward. So Glastonbury is in real trouble.
Do you think the sad state of affairs, Sir Michael Ellis, is that we've had this conversation for so long now, there seems to be a collective mindset at the BBC itself of a pro-Palestine position,
yes,
a challenging position on Israel, and what we saw the weekend was the sad yet inevitable outcome of that?
I'm afraid that's right, and that's certainly the perception that many people do have. because this isn't the first time this has occurred or something similar to it has occurred. There have been other examples of this. And so there's understandable concern that the BBC is not a neutral party in this debate. And it's a tragedy for their own reputation, for those of us that care about the BBC as an institution. It's not in anybody's interests for that international reputation to be sullied by the fact that people don't feel they can believe their reporting on this topic. When it comes to the Middle East topics, there are many people who increasingly don't feel they can trust the BBC, and that surely is fatal when you're expected to pay a tax to receive that coverage.
So, Michael Ellis, withering stuff there. Let's bring you in, Nigel Nelson. If this Telegraph report is true, it's just a report, but if it's true, and the decision was placed with the head honcho himself, who didn't do that, that's damning evidence.
Yeah, I think that's extraordinary. I mean, I certainly think that what we needed to know is exactly what the procedures are at the BBC for pulling live coverage like that, which it should have been pulled. And if it was the Director General who said, no, don't pull it, no, that is extraordinary. What we should wait for...
Should he get the chop?
No, hang on. Before he gets the chop, I think you ought to go through the right process. The police are investigating. No charges have been brought yet. We wait to see if that process go all the way through.
It's not a police charge, though, is it? This is an editorial remit, George. You've worked in newspapers many, many years. If an editor made the decision to not pull a libelous or a dangerous story, the editor would get the high jump. What's the difference?
What I'm saying here is that the responsibility was for the BBC to pull the live coverage and pull it immediately offensive comments were made. I think that that's what should have happened. Before we end up with the resignation of the Director General, let us see the case take its course and see what happens there.
Do you think that process? Well, let's look at all the evidence we'll be taking. For example, I don't know if GBNews had broadcast something that the Twitter arty didn't like. Come on.
No, I think if GBNews had been broadcasting, then it wouldn't have been broadcast. That we'd have pulled the plug immediately.
You're actually correct on that. You are correct on that.
Except they ought to have now. They
do accept that. When Michael talks about the BBC being pro-Palestinian, I don't think that's true. And
that's the perception.
The other point there is the Israelis will not allow international journalists into Gaza, so it's very difficult to get independent reporting out of that.
But I think you still have to...
You might get killed in any war zone. You might have got killed in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Even assuming that's correct, any journalist has a responsibility to broadcast factual information or write factual information, and if they can't stand something up, not to report or print it.
Israel also has an obligation to allow independent journalists to go into a war zone to see for themselves exactly what is going on.
I don't think they do, but that's a different subject. The reality
you can't report from something if you're not there.
The reality of the matter is they've been doing a lot of reporting, and their reporting is not trusted by a large number of people, and that's injurious to the BBC's reputation. And what we've been seeing in the last few days is sullying international relations, but it's also, perhaps most importantly, damaging community cohesion in this country. We're now seeing, I've seen reports today at other locations, other protests, some of these odious chants being repeated now in other places. So are we going to see this now, this message, this example being repeated? It's an appalling travesty for community cohesion in this country.
OK, so Michael Ellis, the former Attorney General, thank you very much for joining us, and also Nigel Nelson, thanks for your input. Now, regarding the Director General Tim Davis's involvement in the decision to keep the iPlayer live stream of Bob Villan up, GBNews has contacted the BBC for comment. But on the event itself, the BBC spokesperson said this. Some of the comments made during Bob Villan's performance were deeply offensive. And during this live stream on iPlayer, which reflected what was happening on stage, a warning was issued on screen about these very strong and discriminatory language. We have no plans to make the performance available on demand. Now, in a statement shared on Instagram on Sunday, the artist Bob Villan said this. Teaching our children to speak up for the change they want and need is the only way that we make this world a better place. As we grow older and our fire starts to possibly dim under the suffocation of adult life and all its responsibilities, it's incredibly important that we encourage and inspire future generations to pick up the torch that was passed to us. So there we go. Well, thanks to Michael and to you, Nigel. Now, coming up next, Jamaica is once again turning up the heat in its fight for slavery reparations, but this time they're taking their case straight to the King. I'll be joined next by the former chairman of Boris Johnson's Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities. Don't go anywhere.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Temperatures remain above average across much of Europe over the next few days. Plenty of sunshine to come as well, but sunshine's not everywhere. Cloudier skies for parts of Madeira down into the Canary Islands. 1 or 2 light showers are possible, but much of the Mediterranean will be sunny, though some thunderstorms possible across the Alps on Tuesday afternoon. 1 or 2 showers for eastern Greece into Turkey, but otherwise plenty of hot sunshine, and there's very little change over the next few days. Temperatures above average.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain. So he can say whatever he wants. A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordby, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Join me, Nana Okwir, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dordby. Now, Jamaica is once again turning up the heat in its fight for slavery reparations. This time, though, they're taking its case straight to the top table, straight to the King. Now, the Caribbean nation is demanding justice and compensation for centuries of colonial exploitation and slavery. Now, the Jamaican government has submitted a formal petition asking the King to refer questions about Britain's historical responsibilities to the Privy Council. I'm very pleased now to be joined by Lord Tony Sewell, the former chairman to Boris Johnson's Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities. Lord Sewell, a delight to have your company. What do you make of this latest quest for reparations? And is it correct and proper to be involving the King?
I don't think it's proper, but I think what you've got to understand is, and I don't know if your viewers get it, about why they've gone to the Privy Council and what is the Privy Council. Just a quick thing on that. What it is, they're a group of advisors gone back right to the Norman times, really, in a sense. And we've kept this kind of institution going as a way of trying to advise the King on legal matters, so that then he then gives the royal stamp if necessary, if there are any legal issues there. Look, here's a problem Jamaica has. It really doesn't know how to really, I think, convey to its own population the fact that it's an independent country and it should start doing governance properly. It's got issues around education, it's got issues around roads and water, and those things, I think, are the key things that are about the country. The whole issue around reparations is a massive, really, diversion away from those key issues around its own governance. I think that's the problem I think we've got here. Secondly, an election is down the road, around the corner as well. So it's an attempt also to maybe sort of say, well, look, here we are, we're going after the King. Here is another way of trying to get reparations on the map.
And it's worth pointing out, Lord Sewell, that back in the 1830s, a huge sum of money was paid out by the British government at the time to slave owners, around about £20 million. And the Jamaican government now are demanding a similar sum to slaves themselves, or the descendants of. Well, that's about 7.6 billion quid. It's never going to happen in a month of Sundays, is it?
Yeah, I think I'm entitled to some of that as well, actually, because my parents are Jamaican, and I think it comes to this. Look, if you said to the Jamaican population today, here is one figure is 7 trillion, the next I think is 17 trillion, they would say, yes, please, as anybody would say. And the other thing is that I think this is a bad time, isn't it? We're just having these welfare cut issues, and somebody rolls up to us and says, "Can we have £7 trillion, please?" I mean, it just doesn't. It just, for anything, it is virtue signalling at the best of it. And I think that I'm quite frustrated and a little ashamed that the Jamaican government have pulled this one, because in a way, I don't think I mean, let me tell you that there's another issue in this, is that they also want for us to get rid of the King as well. So they want actually a referendum. So do you want it both ways? Do you want to have this whole idea of reparations, but yet at the same time you're asking the King to do it, at the same time you want to chop off his head at the same time? What do you want? And so I think there are real conflicting issues, but they really are not to do with reparations in the end, but other politics that is being played out here.
And Lord Sewell, a quick 20 seconds. Do you think as well that Jamaica smells blood because they've got people like David Lammy in charge who might actually agree with this madness?
He might do. I mean, his origin is Guyanese, and they're doing very well. They've got oil, and I think their economy is better than ours. So, I mean, there are real issues here. But no, I think he's taking court with people coming up and asking for reparations recently. But look, I think what will happen...
Lord Tony Sewell, we've simply run out of time. Look, it's been a delight to have your company. Sensationally, truly has. Thank you very much for having us on the show. Now, coming up next is State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. What's on your show, Matt?
On State of the Nation tonight, we are going to be talking about should the UK accept refugees from Gaza. I think the plan is absolutely disastrous. We'll be debating that. We'll be looking at this shocking new case of an Albanian with 50 convictions who is allowed to stay in the UK. What does this tell us about crime in Britain? Top pollster Sir John Curtis has said Labour is really in trouble as it prepares to celebrate its first year in office. We'll be talking about that with the top pollster too. Loads of fun stuff to get our teeth into tonight.
Give yourself that State of the Nation next with Matt Goodwin. I'll be back tomorrow 3 till 6, but first, here's your sizzling weather forecast.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, it is going to be another warm and uncomfortably humid night for many places towards the southeast, but we do have some fresher air starting to make its way in. The fresher air is behind a frontal system which is lingering across northern and western parts at the moment. That's already brought a fair amount of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland today, and we're going to see some more rain for a little while yet, but the front is going to ease, so that rain breaking up as it edges into parts of northern England overnight. Away from the band of rain towards the southeast, lots of dry weather, some clear skies, but it is going to be warm, it's going to be humid, some places staying above 20 Celsius, so a difficult night for sleeping for some. Meanwhile, towards the northwest, like I said, there's some fresher air coming in, so it's actually going to be a bit cooler here first thing on Tuesday morning, and quite bright and sunny across parts of northern and western Scotland, also across Northern Ireland too. For eastern and southern Scotland and also across parts of northern England into northern and western Wales, a bit more cloud around, could be some outbreaks of rain coming and going as well, but across the rest of England and Wales, a fine start to the day. Yes, it is going to be warm first thing, but there will also be plenty of sunshine on offer as well. As we go through the day, lots of sunshine continuing, particularly towards the southeast, plenty of sunshine here, and with that hot air, we're going to see temperatures rising, perhaps even higher than today, 35, 36 Celsius, not out of the question. A bit fresher towards the north and west, and watch out for some heavy showery bursts developing, particularly across parts of northern England and southern Scotland. Some further showery rain across the eastern parts as we go through into Wednesday, even some showery bursts pushing into parts of the southeast, and a few scattered showers coming in from the west northwest later as well. But in between those zones, another largely fine day for many on Wednesday, but a markedly fresher feel for many as some cooler air starts to make its way in, with some more changeable weather later this week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.